Welcome to the iNetrepreneur Radio Show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNetrepreneur Media Network from magazines, TV, and radio network. We're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to St. Patrick's Day. What a great day. We're already almost through the third quarter of the year. Can you believe it? The third quarter of the year is, let's count the checkbook. Have we gotten to where we want to be? I have three wonderful experts that we're going to have on the show today. Each one of them is a rock star in their own right. They are celebritypreneurs. And don't you love that word? One of the things that I like to do more than anything else in the world is just to make up new words. So celebritypreneur was one of those words I made sometime back about 2 years ago. A little bit of housekeeping. I just want to make sure that everyone keeps on top of what's going on in the iNetrepreneur Network community. And for most of you, you know that we put on over 1,000 meetings and events per year. That is a lot to keep up with. And thankfully, I have our lovely Shawn Jones. She's our CEO of the iNetrepreneur Network, and she keeps me on top of everything and everyone in this community. You know, it's so wonderful to have a life partner and found CEO such as her. What I want to talk about first is our current book, 365 Days of Inspirational Quotes. You can get that book. It's right back here. Go to mybook.to/Art of Connection 2. Again, mybook.to, Art of Connection 2. You can get a book there. We still have it on our preview pricing. It's like a 400-page book, really large book. Really great content. You know, we have authors from 20 different countries. We had another like 70 first-time authors that are also now international bestsellers, and we hit international best-selling status in 4 different categories. We hit it in Great Britain, we hit it in the United States, Canada, and Australia. And like I said last show, I said, you know, we're going to have to learn how to turn this into different languages, so maybe we can get best-selling status in Spain or Mexico or India, who knows? But I'm really excited about this book. I also want to let you know that we have our third book in the series come out. It will be coming out in November of this year. It's called 365 Days of Transformational Quotes. Right now, a regular page is $550, but we have it for only, right now, at early bird pricing, I believe it's $197. So, you know, please, if you want to be a published author, if you want to get that credibility, if you want to be a part of a community that is blossoming and growing, and it's really becoming a movement, you know, please go to 365 Days of Transformational Quotes and get to understand, you know, the who and the why of why this book came to be. Also, I want to remind everyone, if you want to come to an academy class, or if you want to attend an event, or if you want to be a part of our networking, meeting, whether in person or, virtual, you can go to ntevents.net. That's ntevents.net, and you can sign up, register, and come in. It's open to the public. You know, we enjoy everyone that comes in, and who knows, your next step may be becoming a member. Also, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our magazine, and you know what? Let's just get on with the show. So I am going to bring in our first guest, Teresa Porter. Teresa Porter, how are you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Robert.
Thank you for being on the show today. You know, I haven't had you, so much, so I'm grabbing you, and I have you on the show, and we're going to talk a little bit, and you got your green in the background, so we talked a little bit about the board for the show. So just so everyone knows that Teresa is celebrating St. Patrick's Day just like me, but her green is on her legs, meaning she is wearing the green pants. There we go. So we have the green, and we have talked before, Teresa, and I always found you so amazing because, when we talk about the entrepreneur and the entrepreneurial spirit, one of the things that I always like to think about is I always like to think about the emotional, it's not a mindset, but like the emotional heart set, of the entrepreneur. And I think you've heard me say this before, but when it comes to an emotional, the construct of an entrepreneur, I always say you really need to have your heart set before that you can start working on your mindset, because
Mhm.
much of the time it really is that passion and that drive and that principle and that belief system that establishes this emotional quotient that leads, an entrepreneur to success or failure, doesn't it?
Yes, there's a lot to unpack with what you just said. So, yeah, it all feeds into each other. So, as an entrepreneur, I think most of us really lean into the professional or personal development because it feeds into our entrepreneurship, right? So, if you're not working on yourself internally, working through maybe the way you labeled yourself or the stories you gave yourself growing up that follows you, you kind of create your adult reality around those childhood labels, right, or stories, which plays into your emotion and plays into how you would show up to be a business owner, an entrepreneur. So I feel like it is very important to work on releasing those negative emotions that don't serve you, that are like really holding you back, or those blocks in your rear view mirror, your blind side that you're not seeing, that's really probably keeping you back from propelling and creating those results in your business that you desire.
And those things, so to speak, I call it the Velcro principle. It's like, if you don't have the ability to release, it's like Velcro that keeps adding on and adding on and adding on. And being a massage therapist, I mean, for some of us who don't realize what good massage therapy is, it really is a natural release of what we cling on to, isn't it?
Yeah, so our muscles hold memories. And when we have a traumatic event or heightened emotions we don't know how to process, that creates a visceral response in our body. So, remember the last time you had anxiety, right? Or you're nervous to give a speech, or you're angry, your body has a physical reaction to that emotion, especially if you don't know how to release it. And so over time, if you have a lot of heightened emotions, negative emotions, or traumatic events that you're not able to release, that kind of keeps building up, and it creates those subconscious blocks that we don't realize that's holding us back. And that's one of the ways that I work with people is I do it's a emotional release technique. There's several out there, called the emotion code, and it's been proven back, I would say, the 1930s, 1940s, that there is an actual physical response to these heightened emotions that we experience over our lifetime, right? And one way you could do it is through the emotional release techniques. So there's hypnotherapy. I know there's like EFT, emotional freedom it's like a tapping technique. There's emotion code. There's lots of different techniques that you can use to release those trapped emotions that are keeping you stuck.
And for some of us, especially, sometimes I say this with my male counterparts, sometimes they're many times, maybe all the time, males need this just as much as men need this just as much as women, don't they?
Yes, and it's interesting you bring that up. I've recently been I kind of, my niche is, I would say, I work with women, right?
Mm.
But I've actually been attracting a few guys that I've been working. One specifically is he came in, he's a business owner, and he just felt like he kept hitting these blocks, especially around, like, blocks around creating more money and wealth, and he knew it was tied down to some childhood issues that were rooted in him from the stories and labels that he was given. So he came in and did one standalone session with me, with emotion code, and it was so profound for him. He's like, I want to work with you on a regular basis. So now I do sessions with him every other week, and we just work on releasing those emotions so he can create more space for creativity, inspiration, and motivation to keep working and building his business.
you know and and other things, other words that I'm starting to hear more and more, and maybe you can help enlighten me on this, because I think this is very, very important. Stress can be stored, but stress can also be released. But stress many times is stored in what they call like triggers. And so, like you were talking about, releasing it, but what happens is there's almost like this recording tape that puts you into play even in things you don't even realize. Isn't that correct? And they're called triggers, and many times they actually sabotage your success, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, so there's lots of ways your body, you can have triggers, right? So first of all, one thing I say that's keeping us disconnected from ourselves and noticing those triggers is we keep ourselves so busy all the time that we don't have time to take a step back to look at like what's working for us and what's not. I think that's the first step, is to create, especially as an entrepreneur, to create quiet space in your work, your week flow. Like mine is Thursday is I call it my rehab day, because I know by Thursday I've kind of hit a wall. I'm so physically and mentally and emotionally tired because of my first part of my week. So I've created 3 to 4 hours in my Thursday where I have quiet time. I don't schedule anything, and that's my rehab day. That's my self-care day. So if you can take time out of your schedule to focus on you, self-care, self-love, I feel like that gives you more room for like what needs to change in my business, what's not working, what's working, like I said. But people get so booked and so scheduled that they don't have time to reflect on that.
Yeah, and so much of the time, I always say, as entrepreneurs, we work far too much on what we do and far too little on who we are. And if we would drive the who we are part of ourself, we will find that everything else will come much easier, won't it?
Right. So I know probably a lot of people have heard this, the phrase be, do, have, right? So what are your ways of being, not doing? Because this is something I've had to really learn. I tease my dad that I get the workaholic gene from him, but what are your ways of being that are going to drive and create the results in your life? So it's not constantly doing all the time. It's how are you being from the inside out? How do you show up for people? How do you show up for yourself? And that's your ways of being that creates those results in your life. So it comes back to doing that inner deep work that a lot of people don't like to do.
And it's even like kind of pushing it even further and further back to the forefront. A lot of people, there's another saying that we have all heard so many times: we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of probably what you have to do, especially when you're working with an entrepreneur or any person, is just helping them develop, what we call that, the EQ, that emotional intelligence. But a lot of that really has to do with surveying them and seeing what level of self-awareness they have, don't we?
hmm So there's two questions that would really tie into what you just said. I teach my clients, right? And it's again allowing yourself to slow down and ask yourself these two questions: How am I feeling, and what do I need? So how often on a regular basis as adults do we give ourselves permission to check in with ourselves to see how we're feeling? And then second of all, how often do we give ourselves permission to validate what it is we need? Even if it's like,
Mhm.
I want to take a nap for 30 minutes. I want to unplug for half of the day. Like whatever it is you feel like you need, like how often do we give ourselves permission to do those things, which I feel like creates more success. I've been
Right.
really trying to plan fun and self-care in my schedule and then business around. And it's amazing, even with your kids, right? Like I have 3 kids. I know you have kids. Create those date nights with your partners, create dates or fun time with your kids, and then schedule work around it. Not that I'm always perfect with that by any means, but that's an intention that I have. But the more I focus on anchoring and fun and connection with the people that are important in my life, the more productive I am in my day, because I know I have to be done by this time because I'm doing this with my kids, right? It
Mhm.
just, you have to be really intentional about how you structure your days.
And it really is tough because some people are more emotional than others, and it's hard for me to tell someone who really is aligned in emotions, kind of, they gear their journey, versus someone who may have a different personality and they're more logical. I mean, I'm sure that with either party, whether you're based on an emotional awareness, maybe even intuition or even empathic, levels,
Mhm.
versus those that might be more logical and analytical. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can help either personality or either person, because part of what you do is pattern interruption, isn't it? You take away these negative patterns, but you also utilize tools to do that, right?
Yeah, so when I'm actually doing the emotion code, it is, I mean, in a nutshell, I use kinesiology muscle testing to identify what trapped emotions are contributing to whatever it is they want to address. Say they're dealing with anxiety, clarity, depression, or chronic pain. Then I identify with muscle testing which emotion it is on a chart. And then I use a magnet down their governing meridian, which is the main
Hmm.
meridian all acupuncture therapies run into, to release that emotion. So as we peel away those emotions, which contribute to the negative patterns that we repeat, right? It
Hmm.
starts to have you're able to see things from a different lens, a different perspective when those layers are taken off. And another other thing I work with emotion code is the heart wall. So I know you were saying something about your heart, like connect to your why. And when you have again those traumatic events or heightened emotions, it actually builds a layer, a wall around your heart, which affects how you give and receive love not only with yourself but with others. And that changes everything when you peel that back and you're able to connect to your passion, your purpose, your heart-centered why. That just helps propel everything forward when you can stay connected to that.
Well, and I think it is so phenomenal about, releasing the emotion, because I think if you know how to manifest your emotion, if you know how to create a positive, framework, you can delete, those habits that are keeping you from that success. Because really what it is, I always say the definition of sanity is doing, the same thing over and over again, expecting different result. But on the flip side, the definition of a habit is to doing the same thing over and over again because it creates a positive result.
Right.
And it really is geared by, like the emotional code that you're talking about, here. But that emotion, it drives a person's intelligence, because isn't the emotion, the subconscious, everything that we hold within us, isn't that really more of a determining factor of success than even our intelligence sometimes?
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes it is, right? So we have to learn that we are not our emotions. That if you're feeling overwhelmed, people say, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm frustrated, I'm angry. You're not am. You take out I am feeling, but you're not that emotion. And so you have to learn to pull yourself out of that and know that you're not your emotion. A lot of time, especially of entrepreneurs, you're waiting for that motivation to kick in to do something, right? But a lot of times we
Yep.
have to do it despite not feeling motivated because we're connected to that deep rooted why, our vision that keeps us moving forward.
You know, and the other thing, Teresa, we've really been coming through, like, what are we at, like 24 months, 30 months in there? We've come through this crazy thing that's changed society upside down, and that's COVID-19. I mean, it really has made us really self-aware in certain ways. And what are some of the challenges that, people and entrepreneurs specifically have now that maybe they didn't have 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago? Because I'm sure that also affects a person's emotional code.
Well, I just know in general, I've heard that people are really struggling with lack of motivation, anxiety, depression because they have been stuck at home. They've had that lack of social interaction, and that they almost are having uneasiness of how to get back into that live interaction with people. So, and getting out of the depression, because again, a lot of people have gotten out of the routines because of everything shifted and changed so much. So, like when I work with clients within 6 months, I like to give them a lot of framework of how to implement those healthy habits back into their life to help them have the framework to get out of that depression. But a lot of it comes to actually releasing the emotion through the emotion code. And I also use yoga to with movement to help them release the emotions on a physical level, so with actual movement and the emotion code, and then the framework of my program, that through all of that it helps them create those habits and shift and change. I don't know if that actually answered your, I mean, a lot of people have dealt
Yeah,
with it different
yeah.
ways, right?
I had a coach once tell me, you show who you are.
Mhm.
You show up who you are. And one of the things is like, you can talk about aptitude and you talk about attitude, but it takes both to get to your altitude. But like a bike tire, I tell people you need both to have full velocity. But the thing is you can survive, for so long on intelligence. But it's the kind of like the black hole of a negative emotion that's going to get you in the end. And I think that that's some of the ways that you really help people and you help entrepreneurs, in our community specifically. I mean, if there was one thing that you would tell any entrepreneur to do right now, if they're really feeling like, you know I, i'm I'm at my plateau, I can't do anymore, it's just becoming too much, I don't, I've been beaten down, I don't know if I can go on, because there are entrepreneurs out there like that.
Mhm.
What is like the first thing that you say to them to say, hey, you know what? You're looking at it all wrong, and let me help you get to that greatness. What does that discussion look like in that time frame?
Like if they're specifically working with me or just they're at a place they're looking for tools.
I wanted to know you so people know how you would affect them personally. Absolutely.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah, I have them fill out an intake form so I can get more in depth of where they're really feeling stuck. And then I like to do a motion code session right off the bat to a deal, like give them a quick win so they get some relief, right? They have a little bit of clarity. And then as I work with them, I work with clients for 6 months because I've realized it takes that length of time to really get people to work through the deep rooted, like what's at the core of what's holding them back. And so, like one entrepreneur I'm working with, and he's in my program, is he just kept feeling stuck in lack of clarity and inspiration with what he was doing, and he knew it tied down to his like sense of abandonment with stuff from his childhood. And so he kind of had an idea what it was, but then we kind of just through talking and intake form and working through it. And I do a little check-in process with them. So there's kind of a long-winded answer there, but I just try to have more of a conversation, and then I get a sense of where they're feeling stuck, and then I say, does this sound like a good route? And then we'll start with the emotion code session and then go in from that way.
And I think that's perfect. And so, my last question is just without naming names, what does a success look like? If you were to take an avatar of that client, especially an entrepreneur, what does that success story look like for you and anyone else who wants to work with you?
Yeah, so the one guy I was talking about, he after a session, he was able to connect with like his inspiration of writing his next book, like clarity. I have another client, she's been able to connect with her mom and have motivation to connect with her birth mom that she hadn't been connected with. They show up for self-care regularly. The other client with her mom, she's showed up and she has a much clear connected connection with her husband because she always had a fear of he was going to leave me because she had a lot of abandonment issues with the people in her life who raised her. So once we were able to release that emotion, that fear was taken completely away and she didn't have a fear of her husband was going to leave her. And she was able to have open conversation with her husband about that, which was huge, it was pivotal for her because that
Oh
was
my gosh.
causing anxiety, lack of trust in herself, like so many things.
And that totally would affect a business. That would totally affect a position within corporation. That would totally affect the relationships with family and clients, etc. Teresa, thank you. I want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. I have your information going across the screen. You're I guess release and reset guide, but you also are a yoga instructor with Sirrine Yoga. You're
Mhm.
also a coach, and I think that you're a massage therapist as well. So you're
Yes.
wearing all these hats. I mean, you're like a multifaceted entrepreneur. I can't even keep up with you. I'm sure there's
Oh, well,
more than
thank
that.
you.
You might even be a florist with those beautiful flowers
No,
behind
those are
you.
from the store. My husband got those for
Okay.
me.
I mean, so just tell us what other ways that can we get a hold of you and make that connection.
Yeah, so the best way if you're interested in working with me would be Teresa, Teresa at Sirrine, Sirrine studio.com. That's my email, or you can go to SirrineYoga.com, spelled the same. And I have a lot of information on there about my coaching, my yoga, and there's links onto my calendar that you can get connected with me.
Well, I am so excited that you were on the show here today, and we talked a little bit about the emotional self because I believe if your emotions land in the state of possibility, all things are possible, and that's for the entrepreneur, or anyone who they just want to live life fuller, and I think that's what we want as entrepreneurs. Let's have a little bit more fun, let's have a little bit more fulfillment, and if we create some profit from that as well, you know what? I think that we're hitting a very good life. So again, thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you, Robert.
Network together. It's all about connections. Expand your sphere of influence. Build relationships. Be part of something bigger. Be part of Network Together.
Well, I want to thank Teresa Porter again for coming on the show and talking a little bit about the emotional factors that make people, and specifically the entrepreneur. And I'm also excited about our next guest that's coming on, because I want to build upon that a little bit. Because we can talk about emotions, and emotions play a pivotal role in success, but it's also developing skill sets, and it's developing plans, and it's developing strategies. And certainly an unhinged emotional wreck helps in greater success, doesn't it, Michelle?
Absolutely.
And so I'm with Michelle Carlen with Alignment Advising, not advertising, but advising. Thank you and welcome to our show today. How are you?
I'm well, Robert. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate being here.
Well, I appreciate you being here as well. I was looking through Facebook and I saw these wonderful pictures of you going through Monterey, and I mean, your gorgeous smile and just really, living that life. And I have to say that, I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years, and when I'm looking for you're on my pick up the phone team. So and I have people in my phone that I start to get know more and more. And you're one of those people. I'm like, hey, Michelle, I got this crazy idea. Hey, Michelle, what do you think this sounds like? Or hey, Michelle, and it really is comforting to know that, in my personal toolkit of people, of relationships, that you have that. And another thing I just really want to bring to the table that a lot of people don't know, that I know, is I think you are an amazing artist, and jewelry art. How should I say, not a jeweler, but kind of like a jewelry creator. What would that be called? Help me with that.
I don't know, but I have one of my sea glass wire wrapped pieces on today, having the green for St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.
I actually do watercolor painting. I do acrylic painting. And then more recently, I started doing this wire wrapped sea glass jewelry from the beach by my house, where I'm collecting sea glass. So I don't know how you describe that. I would say multifaceted mediums.
Yeah, you're a sea glass artist. Let me think about that, and we'll make up
We'll work on that
something
one too.
from that.
Yeah.
I mean, Michelle, really, the space that you work in, and I may be wrong, but in many ways, I look at you as someone who really dives deep into an understanding of a business owner, and really driving out of them, what is their real mission? What is it that they're trying to accomplish? And many times, you probably sit down with someone, they probably don't even know what their own mission is. They have a passion, but they've never really developed it into a vision or a mission. And isn't that the first step that you do, is you sit down and you drive some of this out of them?
I do. So I would say that I help build confidence. And that comes from helping people, whether it's a business owner. I also do individual coaching for really anyone who's in the business space, and looking for advancement in their professional life. But it's helping them uncover that confidence that I believe everyone really wants to have. And they think they don't have it, but in fact, they don't know how to be allowed to articulate it and what that looks like. And so I help business owners see things in a different light, and we drill down into what's important. So getting to the why of what it is that they're trying to accomplish. And the reason I call my company Alignment Advising is because I have people describe me as a chiropractor for their business, right? I help them adjust resources. Maybe they're spending too much in marketing and they need to shift that over to sales or business development, but they don't know how to do that without making more income, right? So we strategize on that. But we're always getting to the why and the goal setting. And so without those goals, it's really challenging to get to where you're going, right? You don't really know where you're going unless you have some guideposts, so to speak.
Well, and I think, when many entrepreneurs. I always look at it. There's two ends of the entrepreneurial, journey when you're a solopreneur. It's the front end of the journey where you kind of don't know, like, how do I put this into a profitable framework so I can create a sustainability? I
Yes.
mean, that is big. And that's why I always say an entrepreneur has to learn how to become a prophet of their profit. They have to know how, but then they have to do how. But
Mhm.
here's the other thing that happens, especially when an entrepreneur does not have a coach, when they don't have a team, like a pick up the phone team, or someone who's creating, the lens that's outside of that certain area, because I call it the boat that goes out to sea. Because sometimes, entrepreneurs are in their business so long, they get to the point of clarity, but there's this rule called the diminishing returns. And so then all of a sudden, what worked for them isn't working anymore. What they're doing isn't being completed anymore. And so it's not that you just work with businesses that are starting out. You're also working with businesses who need to get back to clarity, don't you?
I do. I absolutely do. Yeah, and that's a piece of it. It's challenging at times to describe how I'm helping these business owners because you're exactly right. I can help them in the outset when they're coming up with the idea of their business concept and what that might look like. What does the framework look like? I help develop that. But I help them through, the middle life of their business all the way to their exit strategy. And so I really am, trying to focus on whatever area they're stuck on and how to get them unstuck and moving forward into that next step.
Well, and like with Teresa, who I had in the segment before, I mean, we talked a lot about the emotional journey, and emotions play everything. And for a lot of people, the biggest problem that I see with most entrepreneurs is they don't have a great marriage. And I say marriage with their money.
Mhm.
They don't have the right belief system. They don't have the right talkativeness into what their money looks like, and they feel afraid to actually make money sometimes, which is hard to believe because we go out to do this. We go out to have freedom. We go to have fulfillment. We go to take care of our family. But at the end of the day, there has to be a certain mindset of profitability, and I think that that's another thing that you do in this. It's you may not really work deep with their emotions, but you do help them try to create a whole new mindset, that new framework to say, it's okay to be sustainable, it's okay to be profitable, it's okay to have success. Because I mean, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they fear their success more than they just fear failing, don't they?
Oh, they absolutely do. I see it all the time is people tend to shy away from trying things because they're actually afraid of being successful. Absolutely. It's incredible. And when I say that to individuals, they're like, I don't think so. And then the more that we kind of dive in and get into some discovery questions, it really is the case often.
And the biggest question is, you know, uh, you know, is why? Why do they get to that point and they say, oh my goodness, they start looking around and all of a sudden, I call it being naked in the forest. It's like, they reach that success and all of a sudden it's like, wow, I'm not sure I wanted to live in that light. It's almost like it's intimidating for them, isn't it?
I think it's intimidating because as a culture and a society, we're told what we should be and we need a full-time job and we need to have a certain lifestyle and we need to have certain possessions and belongings. And so it doesn't fit the mold, which I think is what's the piece of the fear is about not fitting in. And so it's not being I'm sorry, it's being successful, but it's also about not fitting in to the rest of the group.
And I think fitting in is a real important thing because you know one of the things that I've learned through one of my trainings is people assign numbers to each other.
Mhm.
So in other words, I mean, I look at back I used to be a computer programmer. I used to work for GoDaddy, Intuit, Linsco Private Ledger, Realtor.com, eFood Safety, all these big corporations, and I was really good at it. But all of a sudden, when I had a great number. If someone met me, they were like, "Wow, this is Robert Jones. He's a CTO of a major, publicly traded company." I come over here in the networking space, and guess what? My number went from like a 9 down to a 1. you know. And so the people who come and meet me, first off, they see me as a 1, and guess what? 4 years later, you know what they still see me as? A 1. It is really hard to sometimes change the number, even if I'm changing it on my outside. And I think sometimes, you have to change the people in your life. You have to change the information that you're being fed with. You have to change where you get your inspiration, because sometimes you start to believe that which is around you, don't you?
You do. And I know we're talking about intelligence here, Robert, and I think that intelligence from an entrepreneurial perspective is about not just knowing information or obtaining information, but it's an emotional intelligence and a self-awareness. And it's an ability to reason. And in addition to that, it's also knowing where to get help and taking help when you need it.
And that's another scary place for most people is many, and I call it, they call it analysis to paralysis, and they call it, working towards perfection. And a lot of things, people can be very, very cleany, can't they, when it comes to what they've created, because they don't have a defined separation. I call it separation of church and state, but it's kind of like a separation of self and business. And when you come across those who are struggling with that, I mean, I'm sure it can be a kind of a battle, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So what you're saying, and correct me if I misunderstood you, is you find that people really identify with their business and they have a hard time separating themselves from that. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, because their business becomes their ego, and there is no separation. But the thing is like I always say, I always try to say, look at it as you're the birth mother of your business, but never look at it as it is, you are the business,
Yeah.
and especially if you're in the entrepreneurial mode, as a freelancer, maybe we do have a different mindset, and maybe we have a different emotional attachment to it. But like when I have Kara come on in the next segment, what I'm really excited about is to me, true entrepreneurs look to build, and part of building is the automation. It's the processes. It's the standard operating procedures. It's putting people in place of success, and and edifying them, and paying them, and driving them, and motivating them. But it still has to start with self, so they see that they're defining this construct sole and separate from themselves, not a part of it. And a lot of entrepreneurs like me, we had to go through the problems of it's all in my head.
Yeah.
I mean, believe me, for the longest time, Sean was always like, "I know you have great ideas, and I know you can do great things, but you know what? I can't help you if you don't tell me any of it."
Yeah, that is so
Doesn't that
true.
happen a lot?
Happens all the time. And you're absolutely right. That automation, the process, the procedures, you can't build something if you're not willing to put it out there in the universe, right? Writing it down, coming up with the framework, as we talked about briefly earlier. And those things are hugely important. And there is a separation there because the business is its own entity. So while it can be, from a branding perspective, it can be very, identifying with who you are as an individual, it really is a separate entity.
And it's something that we hear all the time. I mean, ad nauseum, a legal term, I get it. But Michelle, do we not hear this all the time? Put it out there, put yourself out there, do that, so much of the time. And I think, many times, entrepreneurs don't actually understand really what that means. We get sold the goods that putting yourself out there, it's just you, because we're going into the self-branding model, and, you are the brand itself. But, really at the end of the day, the brand is really much bigger than that. We'd like to think, the brand is just you, but it really is so much more than that, isn't it?
It is. It's about the impact and the experience, right? That's being created.
And I hear those words too, having greater impact, providing something that's more meaningful, having fulfillment, but it all breaks down to the same thing. When we started this kind of journey in our segment is, it starts with that person, defining the mission, and that mission always is and I like to say this, a lot of the greatest missions in the world are a famous saying that my dad told me: just because it's never existed doesn't mean it's not necessary or needed. And that is truly the entrepreneurial space for a lot of us. There was always a first somewhere that someone created to be, to start that entrepreneurial journey. And all of a sudden it turns into an industry. That's what's so cool. And I think sometimes, where we get to the mission is that next step, which I also think that you help any entrepreneur with, and that is that message, the clear communication to let people know who they want as their audience and who actually they don't want as their audience, which is just as important, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. I think knowing who your audience isn't is part of figuring out who your audience is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to make sure, Michelle, you have Michelle Carlen with Alignment Advertising. One of the things that you do
Advising.
in your work,
Advising.
advising. I know it. See, I still do that after all this time. My goodness,
That's
I,
okay.
I'm what is that? That's an old habit. I got to get rid of that trigger. I mean, I'm gonna have to have Teresa. She's gonna have to release my muscle in my back here so I can get that little trigger out of me.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm scrolling across your information. Here's some information so people can get a hold of you, so you can help them get aligned with themselves and their business. And what are other ways that people can reach out to you to get in touch?
Sure. Visiting my website at alignmentadvising.com, and you can go to the contact page and send me a note, and I'm happy to connect with you that way. I'm also on calendly.com/alignment advising if you'd like to schedule a 30-minute discovery session.
Well, Michelle, it's been a delight to have you on the show today. And I know you'll eventually train me on how to say your company name, but we will get there. Okay.
Thank you, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being on today, Michelle. I appreciate you.
Network together. It's all about connections. Expand your sphere of influence. Build relationships. Be part of something bigger. Be part of Network Together.
Oh my goodness, I am so grateful to have Teresa Porter and Michelle Carlen on today. And I'm also just as excited to have our next guest, Kara Dennison. Kara, how are you today?
I am doing so great, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure having you on here. And, you actually get the added bonus of getting to hear Teresa and then getting to hear Michelle and kind of building this journey, this story that I think that needs to be told, more and more. I think that we are finding that, it's not about being separate from communities, whether it's entrepreneurial or family or school or work, global community, and all these things. It's really about, getting to be plugged in and attached and understand and creating awareness. I mean, society's changing, the world's changing at laser quickness. And, I think that the people that really, are, and I don't want to say winners in the wrong way, or, let's say succeeders, those who are succeeding in the right way, they understand these new rules, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I have found, the most successful people, especially over the last 2 years, have been the ones that have adapted and are able to adapt to change, adapt to bouncing back from setbacks, and are able to bounce back and adapt. And, we were talking before we started, and fabulous badass women that you've had on already. I love listening to all. It was amazing. But we were talking about IQ and EQ and CQ, but coming out recently has also been SQ, spiritual quotient, and then AQ, adaptability quotient too. And it's interesting when you start thinking about this, it's no longer just IQ and EQ. It's about other functions and other ways to enhance your mindset and your mentality and your intelligence in many different ways. And it was fascinating to hear both Teresa and Michelle talk about this and their mindset and their emotional intelligence and their actual intelligence, but also adapting and really working on yourself as a whole person can get you into so many future places and succeeding in both your personal life and your professional life, for sure.
And absolutely. And, one of the things that I love about you, and I say love, and it's a good thing, is, you are a guidepost to me for what entrepreneurs, where they want to be. And what I mean by that is when you become like an S corp, or when you become a corporation and you're starting to employ people, and then all of a sudden you start creating a corporate culture, you start creating an organizational construct, all these things, you start understanding, there's a certain amount of level of intelligence and an emotion, and like you said, this adaptability and this change. And in many ways, I say for some entrepreneurs, the corporation of the future is collaborative entrepreneurship. And then, in other areas that it's not, because, the industries are changing so, fast and readily, but what I'm saying is like, to me, there are freelancers, and then there are true entrepreneurs, and true entrepreneurs, like me, I like to think I am a true entrepreneur. Now I get it out of my head. My goal is to create corporations. My goal is to employ people. My goal is to create a sustainability that will create a legacy that will live far beyond me. So I'm just planting the seeds of impact of this movement and mission that I've started right now. And, that's why I like your voice so much. It's because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we don't build for those next steps. And the only way that I've ever felt that we can build towards, how do I become a licenser? How do I become a franchiser? How do I put this, like you talk about, procedures, you talk about automation and systems. I mean, I'm talking, there's the accounting construct, there's the legal construct, there's the different, like even location and logistics. And, like I said, I don't want to get into that too much, but what I like about you is, I have you on here for this connective quotient, because what you do is you place people on certain guidelines into proper places, and you have to meet like 4 wins: a win for your client, a win for who you place, a win for who they're going to serve, and a win for you to create sustainability for yourself. That's a lot of wins you have to create. Tell us a little bit about, what you do and how you help professionals, come into, whether it be a small corporation or a big corporation, because you're a master connector in my book.
Yeah. I mean, no pressure. You got to hit a lot of wins, man. No.
And I'm expecting it right now, and you got to, you're going for 5 on this show, so let's get it.
I love it. So what I do, I'd love to get just a little bit vulnerable and tell you my story, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
So I come from a corporate recruiting background. I'm an SPHR certified human resources professional, and really the reason why I quit my job and started this business is because, frankly, I was burnt out. I ended up in the hospital because my job became a toxic work environment for me. And as a corporate recruiter, I was getting frustrated watching really highly qualified candidates get shuffled through the traditional hiring process, applicant tracking systems, and I could talk about this for days. And I do on all of my social media platforms. So if you want to check it out and this interests you, go check me out. But it was really frustrating to watch myself and be a part of this broken process knowing that candidates were applying to applicant tracking systems and getting automatically rejected from the applicant tracking system that I implemented. So I like to sleep at night, and I don't like ending up in the hospital. So I quit the job that I was doing, and I started this business to help people circumnavigate the broken traditional hiring process of going onto job boards like Indeed, LinkedIn, things like that, tweaking their resume and applying online. Because if that's your only job search strategy, you only have about a 2 to 3% chance of landing an interview. And I don't know about you, but I don't like playing the job board lottery of my career, right? Yeah. So what I do is I really use the art of connection. Right?
Good job. Hey, love it. Good plug.
I also wrote a chapter in that book. So get that book, people, and read my chapter and all the other amazing chapters. So
March 8, everyone, March 8. Look for March 8. That's where Kara Dennison is. January 1st would be Michelle Carlen. So a couple of plugs there.
It's a good book. So I really wanted to focus on this connection because the old saying is not what you do, it's who you know. It's unfortunately very true when you're working against a very broken system in order to go and advocate for your dream job. And then when you think about, being a woman or a person of color, now all of a sudden you're not only working against a broken process and a broken system, but now you're working against other things working against you. So that's what my passion is I really wanted to teach people how to go and get what they want, their dream life, by getting their dream career. Because let's be honest, your career funds the rest of your life, right? And it's no life when you're working in a toxic job and you feel stuck. So that's what I do. And that's how I help people is I coach people on how to go after and get their dream job by networking, interviewing effectively, branding themselves as industry leaders or professionals on LinkedIn specifically, and in their resume. And a good portion of this is mindset. And of course, we do salary negotiation as well. So mindset is a big thing. And when it comes to, I like to say I straddle that line between entrepreneurship and the corporate world because I help people get their corporate jobs. And I'm an entrepreneur. So actually, I've been doing my own program. I've been doing this on my own for about a year now. But prior to this, I was partnered with another career coach, and we grew that coaching program in 1 year to be a $1.4 million program. And what I've realized, what we were talking about with Michelle and Teresa, oh, that's right, Michelle and Teresa,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Michelle. I had a brain fart. Is the fact that when it comes to being a leader, and this is true for whether you're a leader in corporate or you're an entrepreneur, is that most of the time, whatever happens, and we'll talk entrepreneurship, whatever happens in your business, it all starts and stops with you. And if your mindset and your mentality is not on point, if you are not taking care of yourself, then it rolls down. And I'm learning this now, and I have been learning this because when I first started, I wasn't taking care of myself. I was still dealing with a lot of the issues and the trauma from my corporate job and all the burnout that I was feeling. And so what I ended up doing is my husband and I, we sold half of our belongings. We moved to the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. And it was a couple months before the pandemic. And we sat down and we said, we're going to spend the next X amount of time focusing on making ourselves healthier. We both lost within a year 150 pounds between the two of us.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. It was nuts. We focused on our mindset. I healed a lot of my anxiety, panic, and depression issues. We focused on visualization, meditation, and working on ourselves. And I put in place, and this is the first conversation you and I had, I think we connected on this, I built my 10-year vision. And now when I make decisions, I ask myself, is this something that aligns with 10 years from now, Kara? And I think a lot of times when it comes to entrepreneurship, freelancers and stuff like freelancers and things like that, far too often we start businesses because we just need to get out of a situation that we're in and we just have a skill or whatever, and we just want to do something. And we don't have a mission and we don't have a purpose as to why. And so if you're brand new in your business or you haven't done this yet, I highly encourage you, A, get a coach. Coaches need coaches. Entrepreneurs need coaches. So I have one too. And 2, figure out what your 10-year vision is, why you're doing what you do, what your mission is, and what your core values are. And after I did that, my business took a huge turn for the better. I felt more aligned, and I'm taking care of myself more. And I know that was very long-winded, but I felt it was important.
It really is important, because that's exactly how the conversation is. And that's when I first talked to you and I said, we need to get this off the phone. We need to get this for other people to hear, because it probably resonates with almost every entrepreneur and every person who's turned their concept into a corporation. And one of the things I want to say is, like, I look at this, I call it grow to where. Meaning, like, and that's like your 10-year go. A lot of times entrepreneurs, they don't sit down and they say, okay, I am here, and I'm so here, but where am I growing to?
Exactly.
Am I on this driven path? And no wonder, it's like I was telling with Michelle, we get to that point, and all of a sudden what we did before doesn't work like it did before. And what we see, we're not seeing the same way anymore. And all of a sudden, what worked in adaptability, or what worked in, change, and what worked in, even management structure, et cetera, it doesn't work anymore. And it's not just because, things have changed. It's because the person who you are has as well. And the thing is all of a sudden you look up and you float and you see that right, you see the beach, and it's miles away. And so you've lost your bearing, and it's very, very important. And I always say, one of the things I thought about with you, Karen, is, you have entrepreneurs and you have corporations. And and what I want to also drive through is, with a certain segment of entrepreneurs, is help them get to be like, when can I grow up and be a corporation? When can I, have the love of my life be its own entity and have its own tax structure? And to me, one of the things I want to say is, my goal is to hire you. Because and what I'm, and now think about that. Grow to where? So if I have 5 or 10 or 15 employees, and right now we have few people that work for us, it's like, as an entrepreneur, who are the people and where do I want to grow through? Because in each and every room of any audience, there are people that are thinking like me, that says, I don't know, who to put in there. I don't know how to assess who they are, but I know I want to grow from here to there. And that's why, like I say, your voice is so important, because, it's like with Teresa, it's getting the head trash out of the way. With Michelle, it's actually creating a strategy, to get to that point. Because I always say, once you get to profitability, after that, it's scalability. You got to get to profitability to get to scalability. And scalability is that point. It's that ignition that says, okay, now I need someone like Kara to come in and put the proper people in the proper place doing the proper things, to grow. And, in your role, and now I'm talking a lot, sorry about that. I'm promoting you out, in your role, you really are a coach for these corporations who come in with needs, aren't you?
Yes. So for the most part, that is actually on the 10-year plan. And that's something that I'm getting into this year. For now, what I am working on is working on the individuals, getting them into corporations. I have done business consulting, and it's something I'm getting into this year. And that is what happens when I come from that HR background. And that's what I used to be doing in the corporations, is workforce planning, right? Organizational development. And what's really great about having an outside perspective come in and do that is we're talking a little bit with Michelle about how entrepreneurs or CEOs or business owners feel very passionate about their business or personal about their business. Guilty. I have as well. And it's very difficult sometimes when, and I'm just going to use my business as a case study. Most of my business is my brand. I have a very large following on LinkedIn and TikTok. And so a lot of people are drawn in because of my influence, or however you say, it's very weird these days.
Yeah.
On social media. So you do
celebrity quotient.
It is. It's very strange.
It really is.
But it does get very intertwined. And one of the best things that I've done for my business is not get, like you said, married to anything. Everything is about constant improvement. And the best thing that I could do was hire a business coach for my business. And that's why I feel it's so important for me as a coach for other people. And the best thing about coaches, right, is they get to see the best in you, and they get to see you without the mental gunk. because I get to see myself and my business with also my whole history and all of the trauma, all of the mental stuff, all of the things that people have told me about myself, good or bad, and all of the stuff that my brain lies to me about. When a coach comes in, they get to see me with a blank slate. They get to see all of my best things. They get to see maybe some of the weaknesses that I put out there, sure, but they get to see where my business can go from an outside perspective. And
Yeah.
that's what a consultant or a coach can really do for not only an individual to help them get to the next level in their career, but also for businesses. They get to see basically a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where are your opportunities and where are your threats? With the emotion removed and without all that mental gunk removed as well. One of the things that I learned that helped me scale in my business, and it's a phrase I keep repeating to myself, because if you are a business owner and you're a perfectionist or a people pleaser or have control issues, it's hard to delegate and let go of things. But the thing that I keep reminding myself is delegate to accelerate. Every time I have delegated something out, I have scaled up in my business, and it has relieved things from me. And it has allowed me to use my skills and talents to go and accelerate the business even more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you, any more of that, because it's like it goes back to, like, what is cleaning to me, and once you let that go, you can move with greater velocity, and that's what I love about, like I said, it's the people, it's the information, it's the, like I say, inspiration. I always believe it's always been like that contract, and that's what all helps us grow. One last question that, I just want to ask you, because you really you've seen a lot of change in these last, 2 years, but,
Mhm.
for people out there, in any journey, there's people that, they work in corporations and they go over to, entrepreneurship, then they hike back over to corporations, and then you have people that, that are entrepreneurs, and they're like, I just want to get that steady paycheck. There's always this ebb and flow in going back. Is there really a difference between someone who works for a corporation and someone who is an entrepreneur, or is it just circumstance that creates, differences?
It's a great question. So I think that to answer that question, I think there is a type of person that is meant to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. I like to joke around, because that is who I am, that I've traded my 9 to 5 for a 24/7, right?
Yeah.
When you are an entrepreneur, and I think that if you are listening to this and you're considering being an entrepreneur, speak to entrepreneurs. Book a session with me. Talk to Robert. Talk to anyone who is an entrepreneur, and have them tell you a true day in the life. Truth be told, I do work 12-hour days in back-to-back meetings, and then I don't shut off, because every time I'm on my phone, I am researching things for marketing, for scaling. It doesn't shut off. The brain doesn't shut off, but I love it. I am aligned. I'm thrilled. It makes me, my marketing director and I, whenever we get that like buzz, we call it feels business sexy, because we're just like, ooh, it's like so exciting. I never felt this way. I did sometimes, but I never felt this way in my corporate job. I know I'm meant to be an entrepreneur because I can think about finances, marketing, operations, client fulfillment, all of this other stuff, and I thrive in it. Not everyone can, because when you are an entrepreneur, you wear every single hat. So that's the first thing that I'll say. However, I have helped people go from being in a corporate. I've helped them set up businesses and turn their 9 to 5 into businesses that have thrived, and it's been so exciting. I've helped people go from entrepreneurships back into corporate because they gave it a shot, and they're like, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. So it is sometimes circumstantial. It's sometimes, hey, I gave it a shot, or hey, it went really well and now I'm going back, or vice versa. In my mind, if you want to give it a try, give it a try. Have a plan in place, have a budget in place, have some savings in place, and always have a coach.
I was going to say, and really always have a coach. I said that, the greatest place is to coach someone and to be coached by someone, because then you get the full, the full Monty of coaching, I guess. Kara, thank you so much for being on the show today. I have your information scrolling across the ring. I mean, gosh, I wish this was a 3-hour show, because I could dive into an hour with every one of you. I mean, I just love conversations, and like I said, why keep them away from the world? Let's let's give them as a gift to the world, because these conversations, I believe, matter so much. With your information that's scrolling across the screen, please tell me, is there any other way that people can get a hold of you that I might not have here?
Absolutely. I have a million ways that you can find me. I am everywhere on the internet. You can book free consultations with myself or my husband. It's at schedule.optimizedcareersolutions.com. Or you can just shoot me an email and I'll send you that link. No worries. I'm on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, find me. I am Kara Dennison, SPHR. That's my TikTok handle. That's also my LinkedIn handle. So if you're on LinkedIn, please feel free to connect with me. I share a lot of value both on TikTok and on LinkedIn. Or on Instagram or Facebook, I'm at Optimized Career Solutions.
Well, again, thank you so much for being on our show. You are an amazing rock star, as everyone who's been on the show today. On this St. Patty's Day 2022, 3/17, we are going to have Irish stew tonight. So, I'm really excited about our Irish stew. So it's like, I can't wait. Again, we are here. Thank you again, Kara, for being on the show.
Pleasure.
Everyone, we are here every Thursday from 2:30 to 3:30. Right now it's Pacific Standard Time. Yes, we are in that crazy state, Arizona, so we don't observe daylight saving times. What is daylight savings time, and how do you save time anyway? All I know is it keeps ticking and adding up. Thank you all for being on the show today. Make it a great week, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye-bye, everyone.
You've been watching the iNetrepreneur Show, a production of the iNetrepreneur Radio Network, with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.